Hey, have you ever thought about having a podcast of your very own? If so, great news. Spotify has a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and even earn money. It's all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. So, Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer. So, no matter what your setup is like, you can get started creating as soon as today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify, and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify, so that's pretty cool. And with Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since I discovered Spotify for Podcasters, I really just feel like it's taken my podcasting to a whole nother level. So I highly recommend you give it a try if a podcast is something that you've been thinking about as well. Just download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. Hey there, I'm Julie, and this is the Married to Addiction podcast. If you're here, then you're probably what I call my secret sister. We're in a situation we never asked to be in and fighting a battle we never wanted to fight. We're faith-filled women who are married to an alcoholic, and it affects every inch of our lives. If that sounds like you, then this is a safe place for you to land. Married to Addiction is a faith-based podcast where I help you find the tools and strength you need to navigate your husband's addiction without losing yourself in the process. So please subscribe and tune in as often as you can, because your husband's recovery is important, but so is yours. Today's podcast episode is brought to you by Your Praying Friend. Your Praying Friend was created by Mariah Roan, a substance abuse counselor, and many of you have already listened to my interview with her that I did in episode 64. It was called A Counselor's Perspective. If you haven't heard that episode yet, please be sure to go back and listen to it. It was a really great one. I've already shared with you that Mariah offers online support at a super affordable rate, but today I also wanted you to know that you can shop at yourprayingfriend.com for all of your faith-based notebook, journal, and devotional needs. There are 2 books she has there that are specifically helpful for you as the wife of an alcoholic. The first one is called An Exhaustive List of Things I Can Control, me, which I love. And the other is called 30 Powerful Prayers for My Addicted Husband. We all know that we really need to focus on our own recovery, but we don't want to neglect praying for our husbands as well. These books help us take the focus off of trying to control things and instead put the emphasis on trusting God, which, as we've talked about so many times, is incredibly important. So definitely be sure to go check out yourprayingfriend.com. All of their books make great gifts, and everything ships through Amazon, so it's super fast delivery. When you shop with Your Praying Friend, you're also supporting a company that shares your values, which is not easy to find these days. So let's thank Your Praying Friend for supporting us by shopping at her website, yourprayingfriend.com. And remember, word of mouth is a free way to support a business. So be sure to tell somebody about Your Praying Friend too. And also contact Mariah to schedule a meeting. She would love to pray with you today. You can reach her at yourprayingfriend.com or at the Your Praying Friend Facebook group. Hello, and welcome to episode 74 of the Married to Addiction podcast. Today's episode is called, Should You Stage an Intervention? I've been asked about this topic a few times, so I thought I should probably cover it here. I did want to say before we get started that this is my personal opinion on the subject, just like all of my episodes are based on my opinion and my personal experience, so keep that in mind. But I also did talk with my husband about this episode to kind of see how he would have received an intervention back when he was addicted. So some of what I'm sharing here today will be his take on this as well. I think that overall, the answer to this question very much depends on the circumstances. So it does work in some cases. It does not work in other cases. I always advise you to navigate that by making God-led decisions. And what does that mean? That means being prayerful about the decision, not only praying about it, but then looking and listening for an answer after that. That's a big piece of making a God-led decision that a lot of us miss sometimes. But if you've been prayerful about it and you do feel like God is leading you to do it, then the important part about that is that when you make a God-led decision and you're prayerful about it first, and you really try to lean into getting the answer from him or getting the guidance from him. If you get a yes and you feel like you're being led to do this, then he likely has also prepared the other person's heart to hear and receive what's going to be said in the best possible way. So that's another reason why I feel like it's super important to make a God-led decision in all cases, but specifically if you are thinking about, putting together some sort of intervention for your addicted husband. But aside from that, my personal opinion is, from what I have seen and experienced, that people kind of need to go through a process before they're ready to recover. So they need to be ready. And if you stage an intervention, they may feel pressure to go to recovery because of that. And maybe in that moment, they do feel like, they're okay with doing that. And they may actually go. But it may or may not be successful long term if they were not truly ready themselves. As we know, a lot of times the process of somebody getting ready can take quite a while. And it can be, there can be a lot of like failed attempts in between. And there can be, maybe some legal trouble beforehand. And really, all of those things, I always say to the women in my membership, the Secret Sister Circle, I always remind them that recovery is not linear. Our recovery is not linear, and our husband's recovery is not linear. And a lot of times, a lot of those things that happen along the way are an important part of that person becoming ready, because, you've heard the term rock bottom. Well, you don't get to rock bottom, because somebody stages an intervention. You get to that point because you have already gone through a lot of things in your life, and, some painful stuff and some difficult stuff. And now you're kind of like, okay, this is not working for me any longer. Like, this is ruining my life. Bad things are happening. So that person who needs recovery a lot of times needs to go through all that stuff. And if you stage an intervention, like I said, they may feel pressured to go. And maybe in that moment they feel like they will go. But if they're not truly ready, then it's probably not going to be successful. So something to keep in mind. The other thing that can happen is it could be perceived as an ambush. It may completely backfire because the person feels attacked. They may be closed to it just because of the fact that it's happening that way and they feel like they're being ambushed. It could come across as an ultimatum. It could come across as a threat. And a lot of times people do make ultimatums when, they're having an intervention. Like, a lot of times they'll read their letters and, speak their piece and whatever and say, if you don't do this, then this happens. But that can be viewed as a threat sometimes. And when somebody is addicted, they want to protect their addiction because they have chemical brain changes that make them value that substance more than anything in their life. So a lot of times it'll backfire because their initial instinct is to protect their addiction, and ultimatums threaten that. So that's something else to remember. If those things happen, it can do more harm than good, obviously. And it may, and I'm not saying it would, but I'm saying it may set them back to where they're now kind of soured on recovery for a while because they've had these negative feelings around, being given an ultimatum, feeling threatened, feeling ambushed, whatever. And so they may harbor some resentment or even anger around that for a while that could really, like I said, do more harm than good and have like the complete opposite effect of what you were wanting. So all that to be said, is it a good idea? Again, it depends on the situation. And if it's a God-led decision, then if you hear a yes to move forward, if God says it's a good idea, it's a good idea. But keep all those other things that I mentioned in mind too. Is there an alternative to staging an intervention? So this is one of the things that I asked my husband about because he did say that he would have felt kind of threatened and ambushed and all of that stuff because he was protecting his addiction at that point. He was deep in and he needed that substance and he was trying to protect it at all costs. So I asked him, what would be, is there anything else that you think would have been along those lines but been better received by you? And he said, well, maybe if it was presented as just kind of like a family meeting where everyone was supportive and everyone was offering love and, letting me know that we're here to help you. We want to do whatever you need us to do. We know this is hard for you. We're here to support you. We love you and are ready to help you when you're ready to get help. Something along those lines lands differently, right? And now, instead of carrying around resentment, if it's been presented as kind of like an ultimatum and you need to go right now type thing, now they have in the back of their mind, well, could I actually do this? Like I have the support of my family and am I ready? And, now they're kind of thinking about that, about, okay, well, I have understanding, I have support. Maybe I can actually do this. So something like that might be better received in some cases. Like I said, my husband said that would have been something that would have landed a lot better for him when he was deep in addiction. So really, again, should you stage an intervention? It depends. It depends on a lot of different things. Do I think it's never a good idea? No. Do I think it's always a good idea? No. Because as we've talked about, it works in some cases and it doesn't in others. And there's just a lot of layers in between to really, come about and to really be worked out as to whether or not it's going to ultimately be successful. So I hope that's given you some food for thought on that subject. I hope it was helpful for you. And as always, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time. Hey, one more quick thing before I let you go today. Do you follow Married to Addiction on either Instagram or Facebook, or both? If not, I would love to have you join me over there. It's a great place to stay connected with everything that's happening with Married to Addiction. I post updates about my podcast episodes, of course. I post about my freebies. I post about my programs. I post encouragement in the way of Bible verses and things like that. I also post just like some helpful little teaching nuggets sometimes too. So I really think that you would get a lot of value out of that as the wife of an alcoholic. And I would love to have you join me on either Facebook or Instagram, or both. You can find me at facebook.com/married to addiction or just at married to addiction on Instagram. I hope to see you there.